Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to collate and prepare data for building models in OptiDX. In this video, we will look at two data templates. First, the scenario creation template and later the costing template. The scenario creation template aims to store the country data in the format that is required for creating models in OptiDX. The first model you create in OptiDX is called the preliminary baseline model. It is created through the new country creation process. This model pulls data inputs related to health facilities, tests, devices, demand, cost, capacity, and maps the current diagnostic network structure in OptiDX. Common sources for these data inputs include routine programmatic data or large-scale survey data. These include HIS or LMIS data, site master list, equipment master list, OptiDX costing template, etc. We will now see how to input data into this scenario creation template. The Overview tab. This sheet is used to store details and assumptions about the country model. Example, scenario name and period of analysis should be input in cell E5 and number of working days in cell E8. Additional assumptions can be added in the notes section below row 24. This sheet also contains instructions for filling all the tabs in the template, and new users should go through these instructions before proceeding to the next worksheets. Further guidance on how to populate data is also available at the top of each worksheet. The following sheets contain dummy data as examples for each data input, which you can use as guidance while populating their country data template. However, you are requested to delete the same before finalizing the template. Health Facility Master. This tab contains the master list of all sites, including health facility, labs, hubs, which should be included in the model, along with their geographic and administrative information. The columns marked with an asterisk are mandatory for creating models in OptiDX. Labs and hubs. These tabs are used to store the list of labs, i.e., where devices are located, and hubs, where test samples are aggregated in the network, and pull data from health facility master table. The user only needs to fill the sites column in these sheets. Tests. This tab is a master table of all the test types which need to be modeled in the network. Devices. This tab is a master table of all the device types which need to be modeled in the network, along with information about their input parameters like costs and capacity. The costs are calculated in the OptiDX costing template and need to be copied into this template. We will discuss more about this in upcoming tutorials. Modes. This tab is a master table of all types of transport modes which need to be modeled in the network, along with information about their input parameters like costs and speed. HF demand. This tab is a transactional table containing the annual demand for testing, which needs to be modeled in the network. This demand number should correspond to the year for which the model is being built, either the current year or for a specific year in the future, for example, 2023. Lab device parameters. This tab contains the lab device mapping and respective input parameters like number of devices and maximum number of shifts. Device test parameters. This tab contains the device test mapping and respective input parameters like maximum tests per shift and cost per test. Historical referrals and historical testing. These are optional tabs and are required when you need to create a historical baseline. The information in these two tabs is used to constrain the preliminary baseline to represent historical operations. Further tips, including some do's and don'ts on filling the scenario creation template, are provided in the OptiDX user guide. Now let us move to the costing template.
We will now see how to input data into the OptiDX costing template and use its outputs in the scenario creation template. Cost inputs in OptiDX inform the optimization algorithm and help with evaluating trade-offs. The aim of this costing template is to calculate and store the costs you're going to need when you populate the scenario creation template. Cost inputs need to be sourced from implementing partners, the Ministry of Health, or from international cost sources such as Stop TB, FIND, and the Global Fund. This is the instructions page and describes each tab in the workbook. The workbook is divided into three main sections: Setup, Results, and Data Input Sheets. The Setup section is where you can input the tests and devices that you want to cost, as well as the country-specific assumptions, for example, exchange rates and inflation rates. The first sheet that needs to be completed in this section is the user selection sheet. It lists the number of tests and their associated devices. It is necessary to check the box that corresponds to the device and test combination that should be included in the costing analysis for OptiDX. If a device or test is not specified, there is space to type these in at the bottom. Ensure that this sheet is completed first before moving on to the data input sheets. Include all possible device and test combinations that will be considered in both the baseline and future state scenarios. The results section shows all the calculated costs. No changes can be made to the results sheet's device cost and test cost. Costs in the results sheets are used as input into the scenario creation template. The figures here are calculations based on the data inputted into the data input sheets. Data input sheets. This is where data needs to be inputted into the blue cells. Data input cost categories include variable costs, equipment costs, HR costs, startup costs, as well as quality assurance costs. In many cases, these cells may be pre-populated with data obtained from international sources, but please update with country-relevant costing data. As an example, if it is known that the cost of Expert NTB Rift cartridge in country is actually $11, the user can update this cost under the variable input sheet. Instructions for each of the data input sheets are provided at the top of the sheet. Based on selections in the User Selection Assumptions tab, the Results tab shows the summary of the costs at the test level, the cost per test, and a summary of the results at the device level, the shift cost, the overhead cost, and the startup cost. We will now show you how you can transfer these costs into the scenario creation template. So first, copy these device costs. Navigate to your scenario creation template and place these device level costs in the correct columns under the shift cost, overhead cost, and startup cost. Back to the test cost summary page, highlight the cost per test, copy across, and paste these in the device test parameters under column F, cost per test. We now have our cost inputs in our scenario creation template.
Learn more at optidx.org and let your journey begin. OptiDX, bringing the power of data to diagnostic network planning.